Panama's president denying Chinese involvement at the Panama Canal after Trump issued a stark warning about reclaiming the strategic waterway.
The president-elect posting on Truth Social, quote, "Merry Christmas to all, including the wonderful soldiers of China, who are lovingly but illegally operating the Panama Canal, always making certain that the United States puts billions of dollars in repair money, but will have absolutely nothing to say about anything."
Here to discuss is Executive Director for the Center for a Secure Free Society, Joseph Humire. Joseph, thanks for joining us this morning. You know, it is kind of interesting. You know, Donald Trump says things that sound kind of outlandish, and all these people deny that it's true. And then you turn around a couple of months later and you realize that, well, there's truth to it.
No, absolutely. In fact, for someone that studied Latin America for 20 years, the amount of strategic intuition that President Trump is showing on this is outstanding. It's tremendous.
Yes.
Because not only has Panama been slowly being encroached by China for over 25 years, but in fact, what he's specifically talking about is China's warfare doctrine. China doesn't make a difference between commercial companies and military logistics. They blend the two together. So when you have companies like Hutchison Port Holdings that's managing two of the five locks in the Panama Canal, or you have companies like China Harbor Engineering, that's the same company that built the artificial islands for the PLA in the South China Sea operating in Panama, then he knows what he's talking about. He knows that China looked at this as a military operation and not just a commercial endeavor.
Joseph, we've been talking about the encroachment of China in the Western Hemisphere, specifically in Central and South America, for a long time on this show, especially on Fox Noticias. I want to play a clip here because I had the opportunity to interview the president of Panama. It was actually one of our first interviews when we launched the show, Jose Mulino. Listen.
No estoy pidiendo dinero, no estoy pidiendo sino apoyo. Que el mundo entienda que Panamá está teniendo un problema mundial en nuestra frontera. Y los Estados Unidos comprenda que su otra frontera está ahí en el Darién, no Texas. Yo creo que como ciudadano del mundo puedo opinar de que ese deterioro nos afecta a nosotros. Siempre la gente busca el norte como un referente obligado, por lo menos en la región de América Latina, los países democráticos vemos, bueno, ahí está la democracia del mundo. Pero está teniendo problemas, entonces estamos listos para trabajar con uno o con otro.
So, Joseph, we talked about a wide range of issues. They're concerned because the Darien Gap has been environmentally destroyed. They talked about wanting to be compensated for that. We did talk a little bit about the Panama Canal. Here's what's interesting to me. When I talked to him, he seemed very quietly, but definitely pro-Trump. It was before the election, but I got the sense from him that he, would prefer to have Trump win. He is, a conservative, absolutely, but he was cagey whenever I brought up China.
Yeah, that's pretty much because he knows that China's basically hoodwinked them to thinking that everything that they were doing was about business, made them economically dependent on China, operates parts of the strategic infrastructure like the Panama Canal. And so he knows that he's a little bit, it was back against the wall. President Molino is an ally of the United States, but this is the kind of conversation you need to have with allies. It's a lot harder to have this conversation with adversaries, but with allies, you're supposed to have the conversation about how do we create networks that allow us to defend both Panama's interests and the United States' interest. Panama needs to decide, do they think China is better for their national interest than the United States? Because that's where this is going. And I think what President Trump does with Panama, with Greenland, with Canada, with Mexico, you could say all those conversations in one breath, and it has to do with creating a security arc and a new strategic map for the United States. Whether it's the terrorists coming from the northern border, the criminals coming from the southern border, you have those problems because our perimeter is being breached. And China is a big part of that breaching. So back to Panama, back to President Molino. He's an ally. He's a friend. I know he's supportive of President Trump. But these are the kind of conversations that if President Trump doesn't bring this up, Panama's not going to want to have this conversation. It's the kind of conversation you need to have with allies like Panama.
Joseph, there's only one country in Latin America that has resisted the lure, the money, the investments of China, and that is Paraguay. Is this tweet, as outrageous as some people may find it, is this Donald Trump saying, you got to choose, Panama. Are we your ally or is China your ally? Because you can't have both, especially with that canal there and the fact that China can control two of the ports there.
This is President Trump saying all of Latin America that it is now time to re-engage with the United States because the United States is going to re-engage with you. This era of basic strategic ambivalence with Latin America is over. I mean, if you look at just his cabinet appointments, he has Senator Rubio, he has Mike Waltz, he has your friend from Fox and Friends, Pete Hegseth. He has people that are bringing in a new generation of thinking. And with that new generation of thinking, you're going to have people that are going to have a new strategy of how to look at the world. And you can't look at the world unless you look at from the United States perspective, unless you look first at the Western Hemisphere. And I think President Trump's making that abundantly clear. And Latin America is going to have to get basically they're going to have to start thinking about this in terms of geopolitics and stop thinking about it in terms of how they can win from both sides. Exactly what you said, Rachel, the idea of being able to trade with China, trade with the United States, allow China to take up your critical infrastructure, put the United States in a weaker position. I think that era is over. And I think President Trump's making this statement right now.
All right. Joseph Humire, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Joseph. If the Trump administration is smart, they will take advice from that guy.
Yeah.
Joseph Humire has been at the forefront of so much of this and our understanding of what's going on there. He understands the economics, the national security, and the implications for the United States. It's fascinating. Great job on Joseph's part.